So recently, I was in the mood to play a tycoon game. Spent a lot of time messing around with Zoo Tycoon 1 on PC growing up. I messed around with one of the Prison Tycoon games too, a bit, but the big one I never got into was Rollercoaster Tycoon, and I decided it was time to change that. I never owned one of these games growing up, but my one neighbor did. And after playing 2 and 3, I found out that it was definitely 3 that my neighbor had because I remember the Hershey crossover stuff because as a kid that was really cool to see Hershey stuff in the game. I'm not sure how big they are internationally, but in North America they're like a big candy company. I never found the scenarios in-game to be appealing for whatever reason. I just felt restricted. I want to take advantage of everything the game has to offer and not have limited access to certain items or have to sort of build around a pre-established zoo, park, whatever you're making. Like Zoo Tycoon, many weekends I would get a blank map, max out my money, build up my zoo. Research and development was a big part too. As you watch new items become available that you can, put around in your zoo. You eventually see that profitability go back up, go for some of the in-game rewards for upholding certain standards. And when all research and development's done and you're really profitable, you close up the entrance, release all the animals, get rid of all of the accommodations, and watch your reputation and money tank. Almost like Legos in a way. I never really got into Legos either, but I know a lot of people enjoyed, destroying the stuff as much as they did building it. So my goal with Rollercoaster Tycoon was to accomplish that with this new theme. One thing that I always felt like held me back with the theme park games in particular in this genre, where honestly I know it's a big part of the game, but I really don't feel like making roller coasters. Like, I don't even know where to begin. I'm just not creative or smart enough to come up with a exciting layout that wouldn't immediately fall apart or something. I don't know. Luckily, I learned they had pre-built stuff in these games if you didn't want to do that. Not only that, but there's actually a great community behind the series. Like, I found this website that has most of the Rollercoaster Tycoon games on there, and it's just community scenarios, rides, and all sorts of other content. Those are the two big ones, though, at least for me. And it's really cool to see what people come up with. You'll see some duplications of real world, roller coasters and theme parks and such, which is pretty cool. Something else I should also address, because it sort of comes into play when talking about building roller coasters, but also to generally playing the game, is I never bother with the tutorials in these, because I don't know. They just seem boring. It's just a bunch of text, and I just want to play the game. And honestly, part of the fun is sometimes finding out some of these things on your own. I will admit, though, with Rollercoaster Tycoon 3, or even getting into 2 at first, it did get kind of overwhelming, though, with just so much going on. But like I said, it was self-inflicted. One of my biggest complaints, I think, with 3 is honestly just quality of life stuff that may have been addressed with, newer games in this genre. But it was like I tried making my own scenario, and I had to independently select everything I wanted to move to be researched and developed in my playthrough independently, and there's a lot of them. Or when running my park, whenever I see that my guests say it's a good value, then I tend to raise my prices a little bit. But then I didn't really find a way to do that for everything at once. I wish there was like a bulk, raise everything by 25 cents or whatever, instead of having to go to each one independently. That's pretty annoying, and yeah, you would give up on that pretty quick. Probably the most fun moment in 3 was when I spent an hour. It was also frustrating. It was a good challenge, though, figuring out how to make a slide work. A water slide in particular. because I had the complete edition with all the DLC, and for some reason people were really loving the pool I put in. But then I quit because I got frustrated because, okay, I got my pool all set up, and then I'm starting to set up, just other stuff around the park. And then all of a sudden I'm losing a bunch of money out of nowhere. I go back to my pool, which used to have like multiple hundreds of people in it, which now only had like a dozen people in it, and I'm like, what the hell even happened? It completely snuck up on me. I read online that there might be some sort of mechanic in the game where people can get bored of rides, I guess. And I don't know, at that point I was done. I didn't feel like getting into trying to make sure I'm opening new rides quick enough, especially when I ran out of money. Or trying to, manage bringing in new people or whatever. That playthrough was a lost cause, and I got most of what I wanted out of it anyway. So then I decided to go back and sort of compare it to Rollercoaster Tycoon 2, which I bought years ago, and that's where the gameplay's from. 3, I think it was one of Epic's free games at one point. But with 2, I particularly played the OpenRCT 2 version, which is definitely well worth it. It's an old game, and this adds a whole shit ton of quality of life stuff. Hell, if you have the first game, which I don't, but if you do, you can actually connect it to this and bring in stuff from the first game as well. It was real easy to install its core, because it pretty much just picked up my install of Rollercoaster Tycoon 2 right away. What was a little more difficult was figuring out how to add it to Steam so it sort of functions with the Steam overlay, which I will sometimes use for like guides and that sort of thing. Luckily, once I found it out, it wasn't that difficult. All I had to do was copy and paste everything from the OpenRCT2 folder into the Steam folder for Rollercoaster Tycoon 2, and I just had to rename the exe file from OpenRCT2 and, just rename or move the one that was in Rollercoaster Tycoon 2. But yeah, some other things they did with it, though, is that they removed certain limits with the size of your park, the amount of items you can have active, and that sort of thing. Hell, even when I made my custom scenario, they had a preset of default items and items to be researched and developed rather than me having to do it all on my own, unless I was missing something in Rollercoaster Tycoon 3. But that was good to see, too. It definitely fit with my gameplay style. But I was able to activate all items. I maxed out the map for the hell of it. It took a little bit to, figure it out and just actually accomplish what I was going for, but why not? I will say that it is obviously graphically inferior to Rollercoaster Tycoon 3. That's kind of more in 3D in that, and this is more sprites in that, but it's also so similar to Zoo Tycoon 1, which, like I said, I played the shit out of that. So it was pretty nostalgic and has its own charm. Although I will say I probably preferred the graphics of Rollercoaster Tycoon 3 just a little more. Actually, unfortunately, Rollercoaster Tycoon 3 doesn't seem like it has or potentially will ever have its own open version to fix some stuff like Rollercoaster Tycoon 2's did, probably because it isn't as popular and seemingly, and it's just more difficult to accomplish. I guess it's just that there's more with that game, just because it's newer, I guess. I don't know how these things work. Might be more of a challenge to accomplish, I guess, is a way to put it for that game. But everything with my playthrough in 2 went to expectations, which is perfect. Exactly what I wanted. A few notes. Cleaning is kind of tough. Like, I would constantly get stuff that my guests were unhappy with the sanitation in my park, but then I would look around and I wouldn't really see anything, or what I did see, there was literally a maintenance guy right there about to take care of it. Towards the end, when I was a little bit bigger of a park, I would, move the initial maintenance person to said area if I could, but then part of me worried, it's like, knowing my luck, they were about to clean something else up that will now go unnoticed, but whatever. I mainly just started waiting to get, 2 of them in a row, and then maybe I would hire another maintenance person. I do like the breakdown mechanic, though. I think that's kind of unique here. At least it wasn't in Zoo Tycoon or anything, where rides will break down and you need mechanics to go around and fix them. I think 3, maybe 2 had it too, but I think 3 also had like an inspection system where I didn't really use it, but perhaps you can avoid more breakdowns if you shut it down for a little bit and go through an inspection and quick repairs or however that would work. My challenge for the third game was slides. My challenge for this game was heights/bridges and setting up a water ride too. It was a little more difficult, I felt like, than last time. Like you'll probably see in my gameplay, I didn't realize you needed an opening on both the left and the right, so was struggling to find out why things weren't going good there. And with the heights, it was like I was trying to build bridges because there's certain pre-built rides that have their entrances and exits at an elevation, and I'm just all on flat land. And making hills is a bit of a pain in the ass, I'll admit. I eventually figured it out. What the weird part was that I think in 3, and even in just laying out like a ground level path, you can just click right on it. But if you're at an elevation and moving around there, you need to click in the pop-up menu that comes up, which is kind of weird and unexpected. It took me a while to figure that out. It kind of sucks too because I eventually did have to go to a guide. Like I eventually figured out the slides in 3 myself, but the 2 things in 2, I did eventually have to consult a guide. It was eventually taking too long, longer than it was worth. But yeah, if I was to go back and, like I said, on another weekend, just mess around with one of the theme park ones, Rollercoaster Tycoon 2 would definitely be my choice. I don't really know if I'm going to wind up touching 3 again anytime soon. Although I did recently buy Thrillville off of GOG, so I remember seeing that promoted a lot growing up, but I didn't really know anyone who had it. And I just heard, just looking at stuff up online, that it wasn't as good, but I'm just still curious. I never realized it was made by the people who made Rollercoaster Tycoon, who eventually did the reboot of Zoo Tycoon, who eventually did Planet Coaster and Planet Zoo. It's kind of an interesting history, and I don't know, I kind of want to check out that section of it at some point. But I'm ready to move on from my little tycoon kick